I want to challenge you, listeners, people, to think of someone in your life who has been an anchor chain. And maybe you've never told them. Maybe you've never expressed to them or shown them, even better with your actions, what that meant to you and what it still means to you. So it doesn't have to be people from the long, dark past. It can be people, that are still a part of your life right now and still provide this for you, still play this role in your life. But what a great example of, the anchor holding the boat in place when otherwise it would drift places it didn't need to be. These people have held us in places at times when we couldn't hold ourselves there.
Welcome to today's episode of What to Say and How to Say It. Today, we're focusing on what to say when it comes to your support system. It is so much easier to complain, to point out what's wrong. I don't know about you, but it's like the muscles in my mind often will lean that negative direction where it would just be so much more productive, albeit a bit more work, to be positive and grateful. And that's probably one of the reasons why God tells us multiple times in the Bible, like a lot, to be thankful, to be grateful, to show up in praise and admiration and just positivity. So this all impacts relationships, and maybe we're blessed with a great support system, maybe we're not, but today we're going to dive into what's necessary around that. And then, what does it look like to be grateful in that space? Kyle, not everybody. Oh, and by the way, I'm with Kyle Hargrove, our favorite licensed professional counselor. But Kyle, not everybody has a support system. And so if you do have that in and of itself is something to be grateful for.
You're right. Not everybody has one that they're aware of. That I think we probably all have some, whether we have gotten the drift or not. Whether we picked up on it or not, but we have people that not only are a part of our lives right now, and provide us with support and with, they're our cheerleaders. They're the ones that they either give us a hand, they give us a word of encouragement, they pray for us, or they're just there to listen, just to let us kind of vent and and let it all out. Because let's be honest about this. Even though, in the best of situations, we're best friends with our spouses and in our relationships, there are times when we're still kind of in the working through process of something. We're not ready to talk to them about it yet. It's just not safe. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean, that it's dangerous and that we could get, harmed. I'm just talking about, I've got to process this, and I need to process it with somebody before, I process it with my partner. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing in the world wrong with that, as long as you're leaning toward and moving toward that goal of being transparent and open and honest with your partner. But so we all have people that, either are or have been. And I really want us to spend a little bit of time today talking about both, because the ones that have been are a big part of who we are today. And how many times have you just stopped and said, you know what, I need to show some gratitude for somebody. Maybe it's been 40 years. I don't know, but somebody that I just thought of today who had such an impact on my life and was such a positive influence. And, they were on my support team. I call it the president of my fan club, even though I don't really have. Do I have a fan? Have you ever heard of my fan club? Because I have.
No, sorry. Madonna's is bigger than yours. I think Jesus's is bigger, but they're probably made up of some of the same people in that second one, maybe.
Yeah. But I like what you said, because I think that habit is hardwired into our being of complaining about what we feel like we lack, rather than making the intentional effort to recognize and be grateful for what we have and have been given. Mm-hmm. And, it's not always something that we can hold in our hand.
Well, it's funny, when we were talking about this topic for today, my first thought was, and this is this is really sad. But my first thought was, well, two of my biggest friends in life are dead. And they are, that's true. But I have like 8 other people around me that are amazing. And then I work with an incredible group of people. And like, I have a ton of support in my life, like real solid 3 a.m. I can call you, you'll help me bury the body and then ask me, okay, what was this about, sister? You know, those kinds of people in my life. I am blessed with them. But my first thought was, yeah, I lost Cynthia, and yeah, I lost Sandy, you know?
Yeah.
That was where my brain went. And it's been a while.
Yeah. But that really should be a motivation for people that are listening to this podcast to say, do I want to let that get away from me?
Right.
Just like millions and millions of other people, I could say, in 2009, I lost my mother. Had no idea I was going to lose her then. Mm. It was very quick, very sudden. And all of the things that I wish I had said.
Yeah.
I wish I'd had one more opportunity to say, to let her know how grateful. I didn't always act grateful because I'm going to be honest about this. There were times I wasn't feeling a lot of gratefulness toward my mom, when I was much younger. But as a man fully grown, when I reach the maturity of my adulthood, I couldn't say enough. So to not let those opportunities slip away, I think that's one of the best reasons to be very intentional about our gratitude and our thankfulness for people that have just filled in so many levels and so many ways of support for us in the scope of our lives.
Yeah, very, very true. And I just want to mention that if you're interested in learning more about how to deal with conflict and deepen relationships in your life, you can pop over to our website at greaterimpact.org and grab our free PDF, Stop Walking on Eggshells. And that, for some of the more challenging relationships that come to mind where we're not so grateful, that can help us move into a space where we're grateful and more effective and have boundaries and those kinds of things. Which we do need in even healthy relationships. As a matter of fact, that's one of the things that makes them healthy and makes us be grateful for the people in our life. Absolutely. So, I was sitting here thinking about about my friend Cynthia, who died of breast cancer a number of years ago. And I had the great privilege of seeing her again right before she died. And she was one of these people that, she was a 2 a.m. friend, right? And every kid I cranked out, she'd just come over and hang out with me. We'd, do stuff, it was wonderful. She was so supportive. And when she was right before, she had cancer really, really badly, and she couldn't quit smoking. She didn't smoke a lot, but she smoked just a wee bit. And she would smoke these really foo-foo cigarettes that, clove. I don't even know what they were, but her daughter comes to me and we're at her house and she says, my mom wants to have a cigarette, but she doesn't want you to think badly of her. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go smoke with her. And I went and I found her out on the front porch and I said, give me one. She goes, you don't smoke. I said, yeah, I know, but I do today. Because the last thing I want is for you to think I'm going to judge you in any way, shape, or form. You are dying. You can do whatever you want to do. And you know what? Today I'm going to join you in that. And I don't have any regrets over that. It was a silly moment. Like, I'm thankful for smoking. Yeah, I actually am. Like, what a silly thing to do. And I was bad at it. I coughed and she was making fun of me and stuff.
You're
and
supposed to be bad at it.
Yeah, right. And I don't even know if she actually inhaled. Like she said, the best part is you can sit here and you can pretend you're Greta Garbo. And I'm like, are we really that old? Like, people today don't even know who that is. But she had the anyway. So the silly stuff.
Are we having this conversation?
I know, like, is she encouraging Christians to smoke? No, I'm not. Stop that. Yeah, but the point is that when you go places and do things, when you take risks in relationships and you have that, there's a lot to be grateful for. There's a lot. And sure. You have some examples of gratitude moments as well in this.
I have hundreds of examples, and probably some calls I need to make, letters I need to write. I remember going through this process, probably 10 years ago. And I looked up and found my fourth grade teacher, because she made a very positive imprint on me. I would have also called my third grade teacher, except she's been long gone from this world. But I did thank God for her, and I do actually rather frequently, because they often ask when you're going online and trying to build a login or something, who is your favorite teacher or your best teacher, whatever.
So now we know your
Put her name in
password.
there. So every time I do that, it's reminding me of Mrs. Gregg, and Mrs. Gregg really put she put a footprint on my life. I mean, sometimes with her foot, but anyhow, that was just necessary in those situations. But, I like to call, and let me take a little departure here off of our marriage and partnership thing and just talk about people in our lives, because we need to be these people, but at the same time, we need to recognize who these people have been for us. I like to call them anchor chains. Think about what an anchor chain is. It's a chain connected to a boat on one end and an anchor on the other, and it's sturdy and it holds things in place where they need to be, even, because if they didn't, the boat would drift from either where it needs to sit or it would drift from where it needs to be going.
Well, you have a story around that.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is where I got the idea of people being anchor chains, actually. In the mid 2000s, 15, 17 years ago, somewhere in there, went on vacation with my brother and sister-in-law to Cancun, to Mexico. And one of the days we had one of these excursions where you get on a boat and you go on the boat in the water in the Caribbean. And we got to a certain point and they throw the anchor out, and then we're gonna snorkel. Okay, we're gonna go try to see fish and things that I just really wanted to touch, but they said we couldn't. So anyhow, we're on the boat. Girls have already splashed down. My brother and I are applying suntan lotion and stuff, just because we have to have the look. And he dives in front of me right off the bow of the boat. The bow is the front, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I want to make sure I was using my correct boatmanship words. But he dives right in off the bow of the boat, and as soon as he came up, he said, oh, my wedding ring fell off. Okay, and this was bad news for two reasons. Number one, his wedding ring fell off.
Yeah.
Okay. Number two, it wasn't the first wedding ring that he'd lost.
Oh, no.
So it was even double jeopardy here. So, I dove in after him, and we looked, we couldn't find anything. So the girls are getting on out there and they're saying, come on. So we go out there. Of course, he is dying the entire time we're snorkeling, not saying until he said, don't say anything. I said, okay, all right. So he's dying the whole time. That was not a pleasant hour for my brother. Let me just say this about that. So we do our snorkeling. We come back to the boat. And so before we get back on, I said, we got to try. We got to try. So I'm remembering where he dove in off the bow of the boat. I'm remembering that anchor chain. It was just straight out from the boat, and of course the current was pushing the boat back. And I thought, if that anchor is still in the same place, I know he dove right close to it. And if it fell off there, it's got to be somewhere in the shadow of that anchor chain or whatever. So, but the water's about 12 feet deep, but it's the Caribbean, and there's been waves and current, things like that. Anyway, I have my mask still on and so forth. And so I'm just looking and looking and looking. And I saw something flash. I couldn't tell what color it was. I just knew that some light hit it, So I took a big deep breath and I dove straight down and I found his ring. It was his ring that flashed. The sun caught it just right and I found it. And I've gone back through this story so many times and thought of the money I could have gotten if I had just held on to it and not said anything.
What? You had me, and then what?
Yeah, but I couldn't help but just come right back up and say, I found it. I was so excited because you just don't lose a ring in the ocean.
Right.
You don't drop it, 12 feet away, go away for an hour, come back and find it. But we did. And it was just one of those things. But it really, later on thinking about it, it reminded me of the guidance that these anchor chains in our lives have given us, the way that they've supported us. They've given us things we needed. Maybe that's a material thing. Maybe it's money. I don't know. But they've listened when we needed an ear. They've helped us with their hands when we needed somebody to help us with things that one person couldn't do.
Yeah.
And I really want to encourage our listeners today. I want to challenge them. I want to challenge you, listeners, people, to think of someone in your life who has been an anchor chain. And maybe you've never told them. Maybe you've never expressed to them or shown them, even better with your actions, what that meant to you and what it still means to you. So it doesn't have to be people from the long, dark past. It can be people, that are still a part of your life right now and still provide this for you, still play this role in your life. But what a great example of, the anchor holding the boat in place when otherwise it would drift places it didn't need to be. These people have held us in places at times when we couldn't hold ourselves there.
Yeah.
And I'm reminded by this story and by the concept that I'm thinking of with it of, Ecclesiastes, I think 4. Were the Ecclesiasticans? Is that what they were called? I don't know. But in Ecclesiastes 4, I know it's talking probably about the through the lens of marriage, but the scripture tells us that two people are better than one.
Mm-hmm.
Because when, they're stronger to begin with, and when one falls, the other one's there to lend a hand.
Yep.
And that needs, we need to take that not just from the lens of marriage, but in the lens of God puts people in our lives for reasons. And when they answer the call and show up and provide themselves as an anchor chain for us in our lives, we need to be grateful for that.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
way that I think we can show it, I like to use this thing in therapy of if it's worth celebrating, it's worth replicating. We often talk about that when we're talking to people going through the process of grief. They lost a parent, they lost somebody. They talk about the wonderful things, I said, that sounds like celebrating. And if it's worth celebrating, it's worth replicating. What better honor can you give to a person who has served in that role in your life than to replicate it in the lives of other people?
Mm-hmm.
So that, I think, is the best way to show our gratitude. Our words are good, and they mean things, but our actions are stronger. They're better. They mean more because they're intentional.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my story. And I still think it's an awesome story. I like to tell it.
Yeah, it is. It is good. And it makes me think of that thing you said that Danny does to you. And your wife is amazing. Yeah. Tell our listeners about what she does.
Probably once a week. I don't know. Maybe not quite once a week, but maybe more. I don't know. She'll walk up to me just out of nowhere and she'll grab put my cheeks between her palms and get my attention, because sometimes that's what it takes. And she'll say, I am so grateful that God put you in my life because of blank. I'm afraid that I'm running out. She's running out of reasons to do that, but maybe not. But I want to tell you, it motivates me. And I was joking about it. I don't know if she means it or not, but it motivates me. So that's for sure. So, honey, if you're watching, just keep it up. Keep it up.
Well, and that says a lot about you too, because sometimes people will take someone else's gratitude and feel like they're entitled to that. And of course you should be grateful, and that's kind of a reflection of the character. But we're not grateful to people because of what they do. We're grateful to people because that's who we are. We're grateful people. And so we want to share Christ's love with others by showing appreciation. And one of the people in our lives we tend to express that least to is our spouse.
Exactly.
And so that would be an encouragement to everyone that's listening as well. And you're trying to fix your marriage, start with appreciation. They're still there. They're still trying. Even if it's not great, you got to look, and you have to look. Seek and you shall find what's good. It's easy to find what's wrong. Yeah. And most people do. Any idiot can criticize, condemn, and complain. And most do. It takes somebody of caliber, of character, and the Holy Spirit filled to call out and bring life and light to what's right in a relationship. And you're going to get more of that because whatever you pay attention to grows.
That is so true. And when we come home at the end of the day, we're tired, and not everybody was nice to us today, and it's been difficult, and we see that person. Unfortunately, it's not gratitude that we gravitate to.
Mm-hmm.
It's, you want to know what happened to me today? And that's fine. That's part of what we're there for, though,
Right.
is to be a sounding board for one another.
Mm-hmm.
But we've got to interact now. We've got to have transactions with each other throughout the evening. And sometimes it takes us to stop and close our eyes for a minute and say, I've got to tap the brakes on this day. I've got to bring this day to a close. The bad part of, because there's somebody in there that loves me and cares about me. And I'm so grateful that even when I scream and holler like I just did, that they're still there.
Yeah.
And that hopefully they're still making dinner. And, there's some things like that going on. But it's got to be, and here comes this concept again that just seems to wrap itself around so much of what we talk about. It's got to be intentional. It's got to be on purpose. It's got to be out loud, and we say so often, and have already mentioned in this podcast, that actions mean so much more than words, and I think sometimes when we're talking about this thing of gratitude, we think there's somebody that I'm grateful for who's been there for me time and time again. I've never said anything about it, never done anything about it. Well, that requires an apology.
Mm-hmm.
That requires an apology. I think not expressing gratitude is something that we should apologize for. But go back to the actions are louder than words. What better way to apologize? Really apologize, not just acknowledge. And my definition of an acknowledge is anything that you say with your mouth and you don't back it up with action.
Yeah.
Okay. That means I acknowledge that I was a part of something, but I really don't care beyond that. I'm just trying to do what I'm supposed to do. Check the boxes, say the words. Can I go now? But an apology starts with the words, and then it's followed up with action on a consistent basis from that point forward.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there are exceptions to the rule here and there, but in large part, I think that's true. So, there's so many good things that can happen when we do things intentionally, and the idea of intentionally getting out there and saying, thank you. I am not who I am today without you. I could never be the person that I am today, except for the fact that you're there when I needed you, and you still are.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to thank you. And again, what better way to honor somebody in that way than to say to yourself, where can I pour into someone else's life in the same way?
Yeah. Well, and so much of it, I think, comes from receiving God's love for us and then having that immense, overwhelming gratitude to Him for what He did for us. And can we be a grateful people? Can we be grateful individuals, right? Is that who I am? And
Yes.
I think it is. I think He wants us to express that gratitude. I mean, He tells us over and over, like even when you're suffering, for Philippians 4, 6, and 7 style, take your anxiety to the Lord with gratitude, with thanksgiving. And then you get what? Peace that surpasses all understanding.
All understanding. Yes.
Like, yeah. And your mind and your heart guarded. Like there's some serious benefits in doing that. And maybe that shouldn't be our motivation, is what do I get if I'm grateful? Like, what's that about? But, but more so, can I emulate who Christ is, who was so grateful while He was here, and just the wonder. One of the things I like to post about on social media is just the wonder of creation. I remember all these photo groups, photography people that are just wildly gifted.
Yes.
And sharing their images just makes my heart so happy. And I think some of that's because I came from Montana, and oh my word, just you go outside and you're blown away, just overwhelmed with the magnitude of creation and how incredible it is. And I don't know how, even if you live in the city, if you see a butterfly or a bird, how you can't just be grateful for creation in that. If we will ask and just take a moment to breathe that in, it can become who we are. And then it gives back. Like, that's not the motivation for doing it, but it is an amazing thing to be a grateful person. Then breeds so much optimism and joy in the life that we have. The gift.
Well, let's be honest. Let's face it. Sometimes in the world that we live in right now, joy is hard to find.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is certainly not what is given to us through our different means of media. Joy is not anywhere near the top of the list. And so we have to be intentional.
Yeah.
We have to seek it out. We have to ask, sometimes we have to ask God to show it to us.
Oh yeah, man, that's a thing. Like, show me your glory. Show me. I don't know how to think about this. We think something's terrible. And 5 years later, we're grateful it happened.
Yeah.
Because of what's come out of it. And so if that's true in the past, you know that whatever you're dealing with now, he's good. Something good's going to come from it. So in the middle of it, be thankful in all things, like in the middle of something ugly. Like, I'm not good at that. I ask him in the middle of it, like, how do I be thankful for this ugly thing that's happening right now? Like, really? Help.
When Paul wrote that, sometimes it's just as important to remember what somebody didn't say as much as what they did. He didn't say, be thankful for all things.
Right. He
said, in them.
Yep.
In the midst of them, there is still joy to be found.
Yep. Yeah. So that means I'm not thankful that you just called me a jerk. I'm thankful for this opportunity that I have to learn about my response or how do I feel about that? What's that about? Why does that matter so much to me? Or whatever it is, right? There's just a lot of the being thankful in. So what's one thing you would leave our listeners with today as a result of this topic?
I'm going to go back to my challenge, and I challenge you, each one of you. It's a good, better, gooder, and goodest. Good is tap out an email. Gooder is write a handwritten note, put it in an envelope and mail it. Better is get on the phone and call. Bestest, betterest is to have coffee with, go visit somebody that has been an anchor chain for you and express your gratitude for what they have been for you in your life. And then get out there and do it yourself.
And if we do those things, then we're walking in the Spirit and we are bringing light to a world that desperately needs it, and ourselves simultaneously.
Absolutely.
Being love. That's great advice. Thanks, Kyle. All right, guys. So thanks for joining us today. And if you want to know more about how you can deepen your relationships with yourself, God, and others, how to navigate sticky communication things, tune in to our next podcast. Thanks for being here.